Welcome on in, everyone, to They Are Not From Philly podcast. I am Adam from Wales, and I'm with my guys, Justin from Tennessee and Drew from Westchester. Drew is freshly back from Florida. Weather looked really nice down there, Drew, but unfortunately you didn't get a chance because it was a working trip, so you couldn't have seen any of the Phil's games. But yeah, so today we're gonna cover some Phillies spring training thoughts, what we've seen so far, what we've heard, what we think they're gonna look like going into the season. We can talk about potential lineups and things like that. And obviously, there's a lot of like young prospects getting a playing time at the moment, so it's hard to sort of like keep track of every single name, unless you're like Jack Fritz, who's just like a prospect maniac. Jack loves the all the prospects and stuff. So uh, yeah, so lots happened the last couple of weeks. Obviously, I guess before we get into the spring training stuff, we'll start with like the Bryce Harper and Dave Dombrowski saga that seems to be just lingering, and I think now it needs to get like put to bed, and I think it is close to being finished now. But it has been like just a bit of a weird thing, because obviously at the start, you had Dave Dombrowski originally, a few months ago, saying that is Bryce Harper elite anymore? It wasn't his best season, and it wasn't. You know what I mean? It wasn't one of Bryce's best seasons. He had an injury, hurt again. He seems to get injured every year. And then obviously you see that video then of Bryce Harper with the not elite t-shirt and stuff, and Bryce, like they say on WIP, Spike rips Jack over it, because Bryce is a brand, isn't he? He's a walking, talking brand, and he is still a fantastic player. So we need him to be special this year, because obviously it's going to be a bit of a strange year. I don't think there's really much World Series expectations. I think it's more of a, for me anyway, I'll see what you guys think in a minute, but for me it's more of a, if they can get say 90 wins, get into a good wild card position and see what happens. Maybe Crawford and Miller light things up, and we'll see, obviously. So how are you guys sort of like feeling about Bryce and Dave Dombrowski? Who sort of like side would you sort of take? Because obviously there's blame on both sides for the the state of the Phillies. For obviously Bryce isn't happy about the cleanup spot. I don't think he really cares what Alec Bohm has to think about that at the moment. He knows that the cleanup spot isn't quite what it needs to be. But then I've heard other opinions where, why can't Bryce move up the lineup? Why can't he bat number two and have Kyle Schwarber back behind him? But then there's people that think Kyle Schwarber isn't really a cleanup hitter. But I mean, why can't he be a cleanup hitter? So what do you guys think are sort of like the Bryce comments the last few months and everything with Dave Dombrowski? Just do you want to go first?
Yeah, I think it was kind of bad form on Dave to come out and say that publicly. I've said that before. That's something you don't say about what is basically the face of your franchise. Uh, everybody knows Bryce has struggled the last couple of years. He's had injuries. The wrist keeps flaring up. It seems like every year he's missing a little time
Mm.
every year. But that's just something you don't come out and say publicly. There's been a lot made. Well, did he do it? Did he say it to maybe light a fire under Bryce? Did did he do it for this reason or that reason? Personally, I don't think you do that to the face of a franchise, but Dombrowski was on a bit of a roll this year. He made no bones about they were getting rid of Castellanos. Things he said about Matt Strom after the playoffs. So I
Yeah.
mean, Dombo, it's kind of like he's had it up to here with this team now. And then on the Bryce side of things, we've heard, oh, we keep things like that in house. Well, he didn't keep the fact, or they didn't keep the fact, he and his agent didn't keep the fact that he wanted an extension in house. They let that get out. And I think the morning show asked him about that, and he said, well, Scott, is it Scott Boris? Is that who his agent is, Drew?
I
He's
think
the
so.
he's the
Yeah.
agent,
Yeah.
yeah.
So he said, Scott does what he does. Well, Scott doesn't do anything without Bryce's blessing, in my opinion. Your agent, there's always a rhyme to the reason. You know what I'm saying? I think there's fault on both sides, like you said, and hopefully when it's all swept under the rug now. We heard John Middleton talk about it, and they had a meeting, and all that. And then they said, we kind of like to keep that inside. So hopefully it's all under the rug, but hopefully it did light a fire under Bryce. He's motivated. He's going to go out and, with like the World Baseball Classic coming up, he and Schwartz are going to be in it. Hopefully this hockey team showing what they done, lighting a fire under the good old US of A and getting everybody going. Hopefully that ignites the baseball team, and it just is the start of a good season for these guys.
Yeah, definitely. What's your thoughts, Drew?
Yeah, it was kind of refreshing to not have any drama, at least from what I know, for a couple of days. It almost reminds me of like that meme from, I think, The Office, where it's like 0 days since the last nonsense or incident kind of thing. That's how Phillies camp was feeling early on, where every day between the Bryce press conference or Dombrowski steps in it, and then all the aftermath of that. So it's been a little refreshing just for the games to have started and to have not had that for a little bit. I don't think either side looked particularly good. I ultimately came in on, if I had to pick a side, I ultimately came in on the side of Bryce, because my big thing has always been like, I think we kind of saw it with like the Eagles and like Stoutland at the end. Like I always feel like you should never make someone publicly feel small. Like there's like they like these players, already get like enough criticism, from like a fan standpoint, from a general media standpoint. So for Dombrowski to come out and say what he said, I thought was, just a poor read of the situation, a poor reading of the room. But I do think as Bryce's career, continues to progress here, and if he, I think he's going to have a very good season. I still think he is a very good player. But, say like 2-3 years down the line, if he is, a bit more of a diminished player where he's still, solid to good but not great, I think he's gonna, for like the health of the franchise and the relationship, I think gonna have to be open to, some levels of criticism and some levels of flexibility of, like, let's say, Aidan Miller, hopefully is this stud that we all, hope he is and want him to be. Is Bryce going, and is Bryce going to be okay, in 2029, 2030, potentially batting lower in the lineup? It's almost like, and I don't follow basketball closely, but I feel like LeBron, right, is like no longer like the guy in LA. Like he still plays a prominent role, but then you kind of have, Luka, kind of as like the star and like taking the last, shot kind of thing. Hopefully I'm right there. I don't watch Lakers games. I wish Corey was here to send me.
I was about to say,
to send me straight there. But yeah, I think, I'm excited that it seems like it's behind us, but I do think, this is going to be an interesting thing to monitor. I know this is not my original like joke. I think a lot of people have made this, but if he, hits like a bomb in his first at bat in the World Baseball Classic, is he, going to do some like check signing thing when he crosses home plate, or make a comment about not being elite? So it's there's certainly a lot of theater that can still exist to it as the season goes on.
Yeah,
exactly. Like Bryce is the showman, anyway. You know what I mean? We've seen the bandana that he wears under his helmet, the showman and stuff. Like when they came over to London and he hit the home run in London, he did the
Slide.
soccer celebration slide, like, right as soon as he got back to the dugout, and it was like, he loves it. He loves being the center of attention, and rightly so. You know what I mean? Like Jack made some good points this week. Where would the Phillies be if Bryce hadn't come here? You know what I mean? Like, he did give the fan base that boost, that jolt of excitement that we needed. You know what I mean? Because before Bryce, it was still looking pretty glum. You know what I mean? They weren't going to the playoffs. They were struggling, and Bryce came, and he, took a couple of years, but he got them back to a good spot with getting, Dombrowski bringing in some other guys as well, and you know what I mean? I mean, they are right, like Dombrowski is right to criticize, but obviously there's a way of doing it. There's a time and a place. Maybe do it behind closed doors, like you said. Not so publicly, and what have you. When you've got a bunch of microphones right at your face, and it's going to get exactly, it's going to go back to Bryce. And because these guys should be criticized, because I've said this so many times, I'm one of their worst critics, because like every year they take a step backwards when they get to October. You know what I mean? It's like the past 2 years now, they've gone out in the first round. No, obviously, for Ryan Kirkren, doesn't make that blunder at the end of that Dodgers game, maybe we do end up going to the World Series. You know what I mean? Or at least, the very least, we win that Dodgers series. You know what I mean? So who knows? But at the end of the day, the big bats, they don't show up when the time comes. So I don't know if maybe that was the frustration of Dombrowski at the time. You know what I mean? That they didn't really turn up when they needed to, and obviously the whole Castellanos thing now, that was just like, I mean, it was the right time for him to go, I suppose, but it's just like I mean, I could sort of like respect things that like Casti did, with like, in terms of he was outspoken, he told the truth, he didn't like hide behind anything like a lot of players do. But obviously, I suppose, there's a time and a place where he should have maybe not said certain things to reporters and things like that. But we see that they're leaving for the World Baseball Classic soon, and hopefully they do well, and they do good for America and stuff. And I am dreading when USA play Great Britain, because I don't know how well we're going to do. I mean, you look at the USA team, right? I think it's more stacked this time than compared to 2023. I know, because 2023, Trey Turner was the big standout when he, you know what I mean? He had a phenomenal, time. But I look at the USA roster now for the World Baseball Classic, and it's just absolutely stacked. You know what I mean? You've got Aaron Judge, Kyle Schwarber, Bryce Harper, you know what I mean? It's all these big names. Alex Bregman.
Roman Anthony.
You know what I mean? Yeah, Roman Anthony.
Roman Anthony, Garrett Crochet.
Yeah. Bobby Witt Jr. I think, is Bobby Witt Jr. going? I think
I'm looking now. I think he's on the roster.
I think he's on the roster. You know what I mean? They got the pitching as well. The pitchers that are going is just fantastic. So I mean, if it isn't America and Japan in the final again, I'll be shocked, because Japan's roster is stacked as well. You know what I mean? You got all them pitchers that are going now. You got Shohei Ohtani, and I don't know, seen clips the other day where he's gone out to Japan now to start his training, and it was like a packed arena, and he's hitting home runs in practice, and it's full there of people just coming to watch Shohei Ohtani. Like, it's insane. So
Let me ask y'all a question.
Go on, Jess.
So like, to Drew's point where he said initially, like, would the Phils be where they are without Bryce? Would they have gotten other players to come without Bryce? Well, when it was free agency during that time, I think the top two free agents that year were Manny Machado and Bryce Harper. And we all remember the video, Machado getting out of the car and everything like that. So do you guys think Machado could have brought other players along like Bryce? Because I don't think Machado would have been out there recruiting like Bryce kind of did. Bryce, even after he signed, I think, didn't he kind of make a pitch to try to get Mike Trout when he became a free agent, to come?
Yeah.
I think Trout was going to be a free agent in a couple of years. Yeah. So, I mean, I don't know that the Phils, I don't know. I don't believe the Phils would be where they are without Bryce Harper, to Drew's point, because I just don't think Manny Machado would draw the other guys in like Bryce. I don't think he would have tried to recruit other guys like Bryce did. That's just my opinion. What do y'all think?
Yeah, I think Manny would have been a fine player here. I remember, back during that time, I think Bryce was definitely my first choice. But to the kind of overall point, after Manny had signed, and, as Bryce's free agency started kind of heating up after the, Super Bowl that season, there was a lot of panic of like, what's the plan B if the Phillies miss out on Bryce here? Like, it felt like kind of their entire rebuild has, kind of hinged on this free agency cycle and being able to bring in a difference maker. So I think when you pull back overall, like, his tenure here has been a, smashing success, in that he brought, relevance back to the franchise. He got him, made it an attractive place to play. He got him back to the playoffs. So, and I think also like Dombrowski deserves some credit
Yeah.
too there, because Klentak brought in, drafted okay, like brought in some guys, but Dombrowski was a guy who not entirely different from kind of like back in like early 2000s, like transitioning from Ed Wade to Pat Gillick, of maybe Klentak deserved a little more credit for laying some of the foundation, but then someone who's done it before comes in and kind of gets it over the top. Dombrowski, I think came in and I think was able to kind of clean things up and organizationally get them to a better place in terms of like just like systems and structure. But now it's just like, can they finish the job? And I think when we can kind of get out of the minutia and pull back a little bit, like they've both done a ton for the franchise, they just haven't done the one thing that you ultimately set out to do yet, which makes it such kind of like a complicated conversation when you start thinking about legacies and all that stuff.
Yeah, they definitely need. Yeah, so go on, Just.
No. What all I was going to say was like Bryce has endured himself to Phillies fans so much, and people, we all know Spike likes to say he's the ultimate panderer and all this. So be it, man. I love shit like that. I love when a guy, Bryce gets the fanatic tattoo and the fanatic shoes and welcomes like all the traditions and everything from Philadelphia and Phillies teams past and everything. I don't give a shit. Pander to me, man. Make me feel loved. Make me feel like you love me as much as I love you. I don't care. I love that stuff. And I don't think Machado would have done things like that. I don't think he would have had fanatic shoes and stuff like that.
Yeah, I think real quick, and then I'll let you guys go because I know I've done a ton of talking. What is that? What's like
no,
Black
you're good,
Gritty's
brother.
always line? Like Bryce, like thank you for choosing me. Like I think that's a really good summation of everything there.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, definitely. I'm with you guys. I don't think Machado would have. He doesn't quite. I don't quite see that he had that type of personality that Bryce does. Bryce brings this like allura with him. You know what I mean. But and they need to just get this stuff figured out now. You know what I mean? Like Dombrowski's criticized him. He's sort of criticized him back. And they both sort of, right in what they're saying to a certain degree. And they do need to try and get over that line now, because I will be, like many of us, I will be devastated if Bryce Harper finishes his baseball career and Zach Wheeler as well. Like if those two guys don't get a World Series ring before they go, you know what I mean? And Zach Wheeler might not even be here in the next 2 years. You know what I mean? He might be retirement. We've heard him talking about it back and forth. He's coming back from this blood clot injury now. We're not going to see him till maybe April, May, something like that. So I mean, he's progressing well. From what we've heard of Rob Thompson, he hasn't done a bullpen or anything yet. But he's getting there. So we might see him a bit sooner than expected, which would be great, because moving on to like what I want to talk about now is obviously this rotation. You know what I mean? At the moment, there's a lot of young prospects pitching. We're not seeing a lot of starters. Like we saw Aaron Nola yesterday. He pitched 2 innings. He looked good. He's going to the World Baseball Classic now to play for Italy. He's never been. I was watching the interview. Like he's never been to Italy, so I think he's like going there after the World Baseball Classic or something to he's gonna like take his family there because he's never been there in Ravu, and so that's quite funny. So like obviously Christopher Sanchez is pitching in the World Baseball Classic as well. Brad Keller, the new reliever from the Chicago Bears, Chicago Cubs, he's going to be out there as well. So how do you guys sort of think pitching? Because I'm not worried about like the batters getting hurt and things like that. Touch wood, obviously. But for me, I think a lot of concern for people is the pitching, because obviously Aaron Nola had, we didn't see much of him last year through injury. And when he was here, he didn't look good. He had his highest ERA of his career, I think. And so he's looking, he looked good yesterday, but obviously his 2 innings in a spring training game, he can't really. I think he's got one more start before he leaves to go to the World Baseball Classic. But is there concern from you guys with the starting pitchers? Like my thing is with Christopher Sanchez, I don't want him pitching in the World Baseball Classic at all. I don't know how often he's going to be used, or they've got I think the Dominican Republic have got like a good rotation. I think Brian Bello, just from the Red Sox, is pitching as well. So they got a good rotation, and they I'll be rooting for him and stuff. But is there concern from you guys as like starting pitchers go into the World Baseball Classic because of pitchers they can pull sockets out and things like Aaron Nola last year, you heard his ankle on the mound, you know what I mean, and then he wasn't the same. So is there concern from you guys with the pitching and sort of like how this starting rotation is going to look going into the new year?
Yeah, there's when it's not a regular season game and you've got these guys doing extracurriculars. We just saw with the Olympics, Sidney Crosby hurt his knee, for Canada, and he could be out for an extended period of time for the Penguins. That's part of it when these things come about. But if you're willing to take that chance, if you're selected, then go do it. That's the way I see it. You got an opportunity to represent your country, whomever it may be, whether it be Italy in Nola's case, whether it be the Dominican in Sanchez's case, Shohei with Japan. I mean, you've got the greatest baseball player in the world right now playing in this thing. So, and I'm sure Shohei will probably pitch some for Japan as well. And I know the teams probably don't like it, but it's just part of it now, it seems like. And as far as with the Phillies rotation, I said this when I called Thursday. I kind of laid low after Monday. We all know they got the caller of the year deal going on, so I just let the other callers in their brackets call. But when I called Thursday, they had LA on with the afternoon show that day. I love Larry Anderson. Didn't know anything about Larry Anderson until I started listening to WIP several years ago. Love that guy. Love his interviews they have with him. But listening to him gush over Jesus Luzardo made me feel good. So good for you, Adam, because I know Jesus is your guy. You love Luzardo.
I can't wait. Yeah.
And we all know LA does not care to rip a guy when he comes on the afternoon show. He's been on Nola in years past about his location of the he's been on Nola in years past about his location with the fastball. Throw it down past their knees and stuff like that, where Nola would groove one, center cut and stuff like that, and give up, a first or second inning home run. LA has done nothing but gush about Luzardo, like going back to the postseason last year and what he's done so far this year. So, and that's what I told him. You should feel really good about the trajectory that Wheeler's on for his comeback. You've got Sanchez, where did he finish in Cy Young voting? Was it like third or something like that?
Yeah,
I'm gonna look that up. He might have even been number 2 behind behind Skeens. I'm gonna look that up.
And
now.
then I didn't know this, but Jack said Luzardo finished 7th in Cy Young voting. And if not for those, 2 crazy starts last year where Hopper just left him out there and he gave up a bunch of runs, he would have been. Yeah, he would have been top 5 in ERA last year, I think, if it hadn't been for those 2 games where they just left him out there to kind of save the bullpen.
Yeah.
So I mean,
my thing,
the bullpen is in better shape this year, and the starting rotation, even with Wheeler not starting the season on time, I think if they can stay healthy, that's the key. I think this starting rotation is going to be a force for the Phils, guys. I really do.
Yeah, because obviously we've got Andrew, we're going to see what Andrew Painter looks like on Sunday against the Yankees. I watched him a lot in AAA last year for the Iron Pigs, and he struggled a lot more than he had success. And when he did have success, he looked really good, like when he was he was good, but he did give up a lot of hits and stuff last year, and it wasn't his best sort of outing. But you can't really leave him down there for too much longer. You know what I mean? Like, I know he's recovering from Tommy John injury and stuff, but they got to bring him up now and see what he looks like. And I'm hopeful that he's going to look good in his outings for spring training now, so that they feel comfortable to make him that 5th man. Because obviously he's going to be Sanchez, Luzardo, who else we got? Sanchez, Luzardo.
Taiwan for now.
Taiwan Walker. Oh God, Taiwan Walker. Yeah. Oh my God, Taiwan Walker's going to be starting. Yeah, they're going to have to roll him out there. Oh my God, I'm dreading that. But yeah, back to Luzardo. Yeah, like obviously it's a contract year for him, and you know they were talking about on the afternoon show last week. You know, if he has another great outing, which everyone is obviously expecting to have at the moment because he's looking good in his bullpens sessions. He's he'll start the game this week, I think, to see how he is, and you know, there's all things should say that he's going to have a really good year, and I hope he does because he's one of my favorite players on the fields, and
Yeah.
but the concern is then they are going to have to pay him because even with Wheeler coming back, you know you've got Sanchez, you've got Nola, you know Taiwan Walker is obviously that hit and miss, and
And
we don't know really what we've got in Andrew Painter. They got to pay him. If Dombrowski messes this up, I will go mad
you
because
don't know how
you've
much
got to pay
longer
Luzardo.
and you don't know how much longer Wheeler's going to pitch after this injury. We heard
Exactly.
last year that he said maybe 2 more years, something like that. With this injury, it could be quicker, something
Yeah.
like that. So yes, they've got to get a deal done with Lazardo. I totally
Yeah.
agree.
Yeah, and because the thing is, like Sanchez has shown that if Wheeler doesn't come back now, and if say there's a lockout and we're having, which I don't think there will be, because I think nowadays there's too much money on the table for there to be a lot. I think what I mean. There'll be too much money lost for everyone in the business side of things. I think so. I think they'd be stupid to let that happen. But you never know. We've seen it. We've seen it not too long ago. So I don't know, but we've seen that Sanchez can be an ace. You know what I mean? When Zach Wheeler got hurt at the end of last year, he stepped into that role. In the playoffs, he looked fantastic. He even came out to the pen in the playoffs, looked fantastic. You know what I mean? Luzardo came out to the pen as well, looked awesome. So it's we've got that option for another ace. You know what I mean? It's there in Sanchez or Luzardo. So it's just obviously fill in the back of that rotation, which is Nola can stay healthy now, and if Andrew Painter can look good, we'll be a force to be reckoned with once again. You know what I mean? And when Wheeler comes back, so what do you think, Drew, on the the rotation and the stuff going forward? Do you think the bullpen is better this year than last year after losing Matt Strahm?
Yeah, I think so. The rotation on paper, I think, is the biggest reminder that this team is and can be very good if everything goes well. Like I usually go through this, like the weekend before the season, so that'll be like 3 weeks from now, where I'll look at like each team as they're coming to the end of spring training, see how all the rotations, all the bullpen stack up, and kind of make my official like predictions for the season and all. But when I just did like a pass through a week ago, it looks like a very good roster on paper. It can be easy for us to forget that at times, but it really is, like top to bottom, a very, like somebody who's not a Phillies fan could look at it and be like, damn, like you guys potentially have a hell of a squad there.
Yeah.
As far as Nola goes, I think there was a big uproar when it first came out about him being pitching for Italy. I really don't mind. Similar to what Justin said, we saw how both like the men and women's like hockey teams here in the U.S. kind of like ignited things and really had people excited during the Olympics. If someone wants to pitch for their country, and they're asked to, like, more power to them. I mean, I think, yes, is it a little more like intense? Yes, but I think you could just as well take like a comebacker off like the arm in a spring training game,
Yeah.
or
Yeah.
we saw, unfortunately, was pretty much the end of his tenure here. Rhys Hoskins a couple years ago, on what I think was a pretty routine play in spring training, kind of just, turn or land weird and, blew out his, Achilles, right? So I
Yeah.
think those injuries can happen in spring training too. I think Nola will have I expect Nola to have a good season. I think it was reported his velocity was up a little bit yesterday. He typically, whether it's trend or just kind of fun random pattern, the even years typically seem to go better than the odd ones. I think, not having a ton of innings on his arm last year will bode well for him. I mean, this is a guy who
Yeah.
I think,
Hopefully.
for like basically 9-10 seasons had just been taking the ball every
Yep.
fifth day, like consistently. And I think he can get back to that. The biggest thing that concerns me from the rotation standpoint is Wheeler. I think this is a really tough injury to come back from, and I don't think it's exactly the same, but I remember a similar injury, kind of like, just living in New York for a while. I followed a lot of like Mets and Yankees stuff, and a similar injury, back like a decade ago, really kind of like did Matt Harvey in, where he was like he was a
Yeah.
great pitcher for the Mets, like thought of as
The
like the
Dark
next
Knight.
great pitcher in baseball, and just never got back on track, and then just bounced around the league for a couple years and was out of baseball. And I think there were some other issues there as it kind of pertained to like preparation and like work ethic. Like, Wheeler's gonna, work his butt off to be
Oh yeah.
ready to go and give it everything he can. I just think that can be a big swing. Like, to me, in like a fantasy baseball context, like that's a guy who either could be like a league winner for you or like totally blow up your season. And I think with the Phillies, well, if he's not quite as good, well, I don't think it would blow up the season. They're a much better team if he is, an ace or close to an ace than they are if, he is, kind of like inconsistent and pitching to like a 4 ERA. So I think that to me is the biggest thing that I think to, beyond like opening day, to have an eye on early on. And like we've seen it, with like, I feel like injuries in this city that, when someone's coming back from a major injury, it's important to manage it right. I think like you could say like, look, I think it probably would have been played out similar anyway, but you could say the Eagles, based on like Carson wanting to come back so quickly, kind of like rush things in 2018 and like mess things up there. And I'm sure Wheeler's going to be, applying the same pressure of like, I'm ready. I want to pitch. So that's a big thing for them to manage early on and to, try to make sure they can get the best version of him, later on in the season too.
I
was the
think
original?
with Wheeler.
No, go ahead. Go ahead.
Go on, just.
Well,
just
I was
quick.
gonna say,
I think.
Go ahead. I'm done.
I'll make my Zach Wheeler thing quick, and then I just think, I think the Phillies will manage Zach Wheeler very slowly. I don't think they're going to rush him out there because they know how important he is, obviously.
Yeah.
And like you said, Drew, with the Carson Wentz similar situation, he even if he pushes for it, they're going to have. And we'd all love to see Zach come back sooner rather than later. But hopefully, with the rest of the rotation that we have, we should be still in a nice spot pitching wise for when Zach is ready to actually come back. So I don't think the Phillies will rush him out, and I don't think they'll let him force his way out there either. So yeah, go on, just.
So let me ask our stats and info guy, Drew. What was Zach's original timeline for return?
Yeah, so my sense is that he's definitely ahead of schedule. Like, I remember when the news first came out last year and he had the surgery, I thought there was some thought that, he could maybe miss the first half of the season, or there was even like, is he even going to just retire and pitch again? So he is, I'd say, at least by multiple months, definitely ahead of schedule there.
That's what I was
sure
thinking.
It was like July, August, wasn't it?
I was thinking they were saying after the All-Star break sometime. So with him being this far ahead, if the Phillies come out and they're playing well, they're kind of jumping back and forth between first and second in the division, I would hold him until I couldn't anymore. Basically, I would not want to chance this because we know what Zach Wheeler is. We know what he can do and what he can bring to this club. So if you can hold him just to be sure, not rush him back. We all know he's a tough son bitch. He's got that rib in his closet. He had the surgeon, hold the rib for him and do what he could to preserve the rib. And he says he's got it in his closet and everything. So this is a tough son bitch. But if you can pull him back just a little bit to make sure everything's great, everything's good, and not say he's 100%, but 95% or whatever, and the team is doing well, you say you can get some decent starts out of Taijuan. Say Andrew Painter does start the season with the big club and he's pitching well. He's got a sub-4 ERA and he's got a good strikeout rate. Hold Wheeler as long as you can. I know it's going to be tough to keep the reins pulled on that horse, but you've got to for the greater good of the team and your end goal of the season.
Yeah, my concern is like obviously it's the right thing to do, obviously, like you said, just to like hold him as long as you can to make sure he's at 100%, so we get the right version of Zach Wheeler back pitching. You know what I mean? But my
Yeah.
concern, obviously, and it's the Mets. The Mets on paper have gotten better once again. You know what I mean? They snagged. I know Bo Bichette hasn't looked good in spring training so far, so we might. I don't know until the regular season starts. We might have dodged a bullet with Bo Bichette. I don't know, but you know they managed to snatch him from under us. You know they've signed a few other players. So obviously I think it's going to be tougher this year for the Phillies to hold the division lead. You know what I mean? I think there will be times where we'll be leading the division and the Mets will be under us, but I think it could be a bit of flip flopping in the middle of the season, maybe. And if obviously, so then they're going to be, you know, they've got to make some tough decisions then. Where if Zach isn't quite ready, or if he feels he's ready to come back, do we bring him back? Because maybe the Phillies are on like a, you know, a bit of a up and down losing streak. You know, they're losing more than they're winning. The Mets, you know, having 2 week stints where they're, you know, top of the division and things like that. So it's a tough one because obviously, yeah, that's my concern.
Yeah.
So like before I move us on to like the young guys in spring training now, obviously Justin Crawford and stuff. Obviously that report came out last week about Reese Hoskins. And as soon as I seen Devin Caney like reporting and I was like, oh yes, they've, you know, like a lot of us, you just jump into it and it's like, yeah, let's bring Reese Hoskins back. You know what I mean? If if it was even Bryce that wanted him back, it's like, yeah, it's a no brainer, bring him back. And I know it's obviously it's a thing of, well, where does he play? Because I was listening to High Hopes, you know, the other day, and Jack and James were a bit like, yeah, you know, it would have been great to bring him back, but where do you sort of put him in the lineup? You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Is he a bench option? And for me, if Reese is willing to like be a bench option, and you've got a tidy bat to see what he looks like to bring off the bench, like they do with Sosa, like they do with other guys, it's like, well, yeah, bring him back. I mean, he's signed a minor league contract now with the Guardians, so it's like, you know, surely they could have figured something out. I don't know. You know, I'm just, you know, I'm just, maybe I'm just like got my Reese Hoskins glasses on. You know what I mean? So, do you guys think there could have been a way to bring Reese Hoskins back, or do you think it was just like, yeah, you know, it's you know, they're not going to move Bryce Harper off his base. Hoskins is going to want to be a starter, not a bench option. So, what do you guys sort of think of that situation?
I'll let Drew take this one first.
Yeah, I was a pretty. I'll just be honest. I was a pretty hard no on that front.
Yeah,
Like I totally believe Dev's report. I just it's just to me from like to like the fan sentiment standpoint. It's a little like it just feels a little like ironic to me of like you know it's been generally like so like anti running it back, and then for whatever reason I feel like Reese makes people like super nostalgic in a lot of ways,
Yeah.
and like I do like
yeah,
I get it. Like 2022 it was like an unbelievable postseason run, the bat spike against Strider, like he was, you know,
yeah.
unbelievable in the NLCS. Like I'm doing what I just said that I feel like people do too much right now. So
That's
I get
exactly what
it.
I did. I put my Reese Hoskins glasses on. You know.
I think the fact that he signed, you know, like a minor league contract kind of tells you, you know, what the league thinks of him as a player right now. Like he just, you know, he hasn't been a particularly productive player since he left the Phillies. And I think, you know, they need to be in the business of, you know, if they're going to, you know, put money or effort into something trying to acquire good players. So I feel like I just feel like that ship has kind of sailed, that like the time
Mm.
to do it would have been in, you know, 2024. If you wanted to move Bryce back to the outfield, you could have tried to make something work then. I just feel like you can't put the toothpaste back in the tube there at this point.
Yeah, it's a shame. Just what's your feelings on it?
I agree with Drew. Us as sports fans, when a player we like who done something great at one time leaves, and you have a chance to bring him back, it's nostalgia. It really is. You Drew hit the nail on the head with the bat spike against the Braves because Hadn't he done something like had an error or something like that in a game previous or something like that? And
I don't think he had a hit that series until I think he was
yeah,
like 1 for 15 in the playoffs.
yeah,
Plus, you're right, he had an error in game 2. He was having a rough playoffs before that.
yeah, and everybody loves nostalgia. You want to go back and to kind of book in what Drew said. It's nostalgia. If they wanted to bring Hoskins back, in my opinion, like you said, he signed a minor league deal with the Guardians. They could have brought him back. They didn't bring him back for a reason. And another question, I may be jumping the gun on this a little bit, but say there's someone out there that is on the last year of their deal, and it's a left fielder or a third baseman. Say we know Bohm's going into a contract year, and we've all heard Ike and Jack say Bohmer contract season coming up. He's going to hit 20 home runs and drive in 100 runs and stuff like that, and hit
No, he's
280 or
not.
whatever.
He's not.
But say Bohm's just being Bohm, and there's I don't know any third basemen that are on the final year of their deal or something like that, and they're playing well, or it's a left fielder. Would the Phillies make a deal? Because we saw them go hard after Bo Bichette, and then everybody was pissed when they signed JT to the deal they signed him to. Eh, that's what I'm looking at. If there's a move to be made, I think there'll be a trade somewhere along the line, because if they wanted to bring Reese back, they would have done it. And Reese would have probably rather went to the Phillies than the Guardians if it came
Yeah,
down
of
to it.
course.
There was very little money difference in the situation. It was kind of close. He would have probably picked the Phils over the Guardians because, like you said, it's a minor league deal. It's not a locked in deal. He's got a chance to make the club. I just think, yeah, Drew hit the nail on the head. It's more of a nostalgia thing.
Yeah.
It happens to every one of
Yeah.
us, though. When you see a player that you love go somewhere else, just like Zach Ertz. We saw Zach Ertz, we traded him to Arizona, and then he's played well for the Commanders these last few years. And I saw a video of him the other day. He's working out after that horrific knee injury he sustained. And I think he's 15, 16 catches away from being the Eagles' all-time receptions leader, I believe. And there's people out there saying, bring him back for one more run. Hell, I wouldn't be against it because I love Zach Ertz. I've got Owen has a Christmas ornament, one of those Hallmark ornaments, and it's Ertz diving basically when he dove and scored the touchdown that bounced out and he caught. Hell, I'd bring him back just to get the 15, 16 catches because he ain't no worse a blocker than Grant Calcaterra. And Grant Calcaterra, hell, I believe I can block better than him, and I'm 48 and a whole lot littler than he is. So I mean, that's the nostalgia in us
still
all.
gets open. He finds his way to get open. You know what I mean? I know he's obviously got a good quarterback with Jaden Daniels and what have you, but I mean, I did it myself. I put it in the chat the other week, didn't I? I was like, re-sign Zach, sign Dallas Goedert. You got Zach Ertz as your second option, and draft
somebody.
How he can somehow draft the best tight end in this year's draft to develop him as
from the Northeast, guys. We need 5 tight ends. We need 5 tight ends, okay? 5 tight ends, okay?
It's a good impression.
Speaking of that, I've been listening this week. Before I get on to the next bit now, obviously there's a WIP caller of the what's it called? Just the bracket.
Caller of the year for the
bracket,
afternoon show.
And I am a bit behind this week still. But I listen when I can, and just you have been on an absolute tear these last couple of weeks. You have been ramping up your calls, your sayings, all the things you come out with. It's been. I was sitting there the other day, and when you said about the coochie, I laughed my ass off, because it came out of nowhere. Even though you told us you were going to try and get it on the call.
Well, I'll be honest. I asked Jack. I texted him beforehand, and I'll run things by Jack. He said that, and so he'll be like, "No, can't do that." So when I asked, I said, "Can I say coochie?" And it was like the response I got was like that, like he was thinking about it. I never got a reply. So you know me, boys. I said, "Let her rip, Tater Chip." And
let it rip.
I got ideas. Spike dropped his pen. Ike dropped his head. They didn't know what in the hell to think. They didn't know their ice from a hole in the ground, boys.
I know. They were just like, get him off. He's got to go. He's got to go now. But I tell you something, right? Someone who's going to be a dark horse, and she absolutely cracks me up every time she comes on. Is, I don't know if you know, is that new lady that's calling up? She was like threatening to beat up Spike the other day, and
Oh,
she was
she
like,
got
"Oh,
beat.
I'll
She
beat you
got
up."
beat in the first round. Beat
Oh
you up, make
Is
no,
love
that
to you.
Kristen? Is
Yeah.
that who we're talking about?
she was
No,
going up
no,
against Yoshi,
Christy.
wasn't she?
Yeah, Christy,
I
and
think
she
I know who you're
advanced.
talking about now. Okay,
It's
yeah,
it's. I forget her name. God love her heart. She says, "Bruh," like
Keisha or
Herb
something,
says,
maybe some
"Okay."
K
Yeah,
name. I
bro.
Keisha.
think.
She's
That's
like,
it.
"Yeah, I'm
Yeah,
gonna." She said, "Come on, bruh. Come on, bruh. I'm gonna do
yeah.
this to you. I'm gonna beat you up, bruh, and
She
make
got
love to you
she
afterwards."
she got hammered in the first round by Yoshi. She did. She did.
Oh
And real
man, I
quick,
thought yeah.
while we're on that, thank you to everybody that
Mm,
voted for me. Like I told
mm.
them the other day, boys, I've been out here like a Southern politician. I've been shaking babies and kissing hands. But they told the results yesterday. I think not to toot my own horn, but I had the
Yeah.
biggest victory so far of all of them. I had like 92% of the total vote. And tip of the
Yeah.
hat to you for the what was her name, guys? The basketball girl, the teacher. Shit, I forget, but
Oh, Emily.
tip of
Emily.
the hat.
Emily the
Emily, the
teacher.
teacher.
Yeah.
Yes, yes. Tip of the hat to you, Hein. But on to the next round,
Yeah.
guys.
Well, we're rooting for you and Corey to you know get. I don't know what will happen if you both get in the final, because that'll be that's a cool one. That's gonna be funny. That is, if both of you get
Hey,
to the final, because
look, you're going to have
yeah.
Collar of the Year on your pod either way if it's me and Corey, but me and Corey,
Yeah,
bud.
exactly. Yeah, so it's a win-win for us. So yeah,
Yeah.
but she just cracked me up the other day. Where I thought she was going to take down Yoshi. I thought she was going to be a dark horse, and because I thought, oh my god, like it was only her fourth call, but she is just so funny and entertaining, and yeah, that was really funny. But yeah, so obviously spring training. I've been watching the games, and the the young prospects are looking good. Dante Nori's hitting quite well. The starters, Bryson Stott's hitting quite well at the minute. Trey Turner's had some RBIs. Where's my list? I got a list here of names, and obviously the big name that's standing out in camp at the moment is Justin Crawford. Obviously, we know, he's been talked about with Aiden Miller the last few years now since they got drafted. They're going to be like the next superstars to keep this Phillies lineup exciting and stuff, as Bryce and Kyle and Trey again older. So obviously I suppose it is the right time to move these guys up. But Aiden Miller's got some back soreness at the moment, so we haven't seen him yet. But I'm guessing he's going to start the year in AAA. Like we're saying back, like with Zach Wheeler, the Phillies are going to be careful. They're obviously not going to rush guys out there if they're hurt. But yeah, some young guys are looking good. Obviously, Dylan Moore is another young guy. He's quite an up and coming prospect. I think he's a second baseman, Drew, or a shortstop. I think he's looking good. Otto Kemp has looked good so far. He had a home run the other day, so that's why you want the young prospects doing. You want them hitting. Obviously, they're going up. Then they're not really going up against maybe starting MLB bullpens and starters, but it's good for them to see hitting. And Justin Crawford has looked fantastic so far. He's
Yeah.
looking like he belongs there, like he can play center field. He's tracked the ball well. He's made a couple of really good catches. He's gotten really patient at bats. You know what I mean? He's not just hitting for the sake of it. He's seeing what's coming to him. He's had some good hits. So I'll probably start with you, Drew, on this one. How do you feel about obviously Justin Crawford and Aiden Miller now? They're going to be coming up. I think Aiden Miller would probably start in AAA, but I think we'll see him as long as he's healthy. We've seen that Bryce Harper wants him up as soon as possible from his interview the other day. So that's good to have in your corner when you've got Bryce speaking up for you. So how do you feel about Justin Crawford and what you've seen of him so far, Drew?
Yeah, I think to your point, Adam, I think just looking like he belongs is, really important and a really good test. To me, I think a successful season for Crawford would be if he goes the distance in the major leagues. I think back of like Alec Boehm at one point. He came on in the pandemic season, had a pretty good 2020, had to be demoted in 2021. We saw Bryson Stott similar start the season in 2022, really struggle, had to be demoted, couple injuries happened, he came back and was better. So if you get demoted, that's not, like a career, like death sentence or anything. It happens to a lot of people. It happened to Mike Trout. So like, it's like, it's okay. But if Crawford can just kind of go like wire to wire and hold his own, I think that would be a really, I think that would be a really good sign. He to me is going to be really, he to me is going to be a really interesting like case test case for kind of like the like Phillies and like fandom and the way we perceive the team, because there's a chance he, if I had to bet, like I would set his over under on home runs for the season at probably like 3.5 or 4. Like he doesn't
Yeah.
have a lot of power, he's not going to hit the ball out of the park, but you know, if he can make contact, he, you know, can cause a lot of havoc and all. And I think it's just going to be a really interesting test of, like, we talk all the time about like small ball, small ball, small ball, like put the ball in play. He's kind of like that guy we want. I feel like we've been asking for, who can like make contact and isn't going to strike out a lot, that can have good at bats. But then if the rest of the team isn't hitting enough home runs, kind of, you know, does that perception change? Like if you think back to the playoffs last year, the one game where the Phillies hit home runs, they won. The 3 games that they lost, they didn't hit any home runs that game. So it's going to be a really interesting test to me. I loved Crawford's dad. His day, I think he was a better Ray than a Red Sox, but Carl was a great player. So I do worry if like that style of play translates as well in 2026 than it did in, you know, 2006 when like Carl was in his heyday. But it should be. It's been a while since we've had, you know, someone like that kind of come through the system and, you know, perceivably start opening day. I think, you know, Stott in 2022 was like that, but I don't think we've had anyone since. So that's exciting. And Aiden Miller, yeah, I mean, I think at this point, right, like he just needs to get healthy. He just needs reps. We need to see him play. But I think that I think to me will be more of a, you know, story come the trade deadline of if the Phillies, you know, find a way to have him play in, you know, a couple times a week before that, and he's playing well, you know, do you move off of, you know, Marsh and put him in left field, or do you, you know, try to move off of Bohm and create a spot for him? But yeah, I'm excited to watch those guys. Crawford is definitely, you know, I think the Blue Jays pitcher who he, you know, first up out of spring training hit the double off of, I think that guy held like professional lefties to like a 230 average last year. So
wow.
there's a lot of good signs early. And yeah, I think if he just, you know, kind of holds his own and shows he belongs, that's, you know, a big win for their player development, I think, early on.
Yeah, I agree with Drew. And looking at Justin Crawford the whole time, I think Ike or Spike asked him who is comparable, asked Jack who his comparable would be like for someone in the past. And Jack said it, his dad, Carl Crawford. I think Drew can look it up, but maybe the most home runs Carl Crawford ever hit in a season may have been like 12 or 13, something like that. He was always a solid
Yeah,
left
he got
fielder,
into
put the
maybe like
ball in
high
play.
teens once, but he was
Yeah.
not super often.
Yeah, but he could steal bases. He was a doubles guy. He got on base. He put the ball in play. If this kid can solidify the center field spot, and something LA said about him the other day too, when he was gushing about Justin Crawford, and he said that this kid he already knows how to bunt. He can bunt and put the ball in play, but he wants to learn how to be better at it. He wants to work at bunting more. And if that's something that you never had out of Rojas got all geeked out and huge and swollen. He always just wanted to hit home runs. And, you know, he had the horrible bunt in the postseason last year, you know, and everything else. But when you've got a young guy who wants to do that, actually wants to get better at that, I think you've got something. You know, Jack, he's moved the bar for Crawford. He's saying, you know, 270 with whatever OPS. I forget what he said OPS. You know, if he can hit 270 with 5 home runs, you know, and plays a good center field, we're going to be okay. But it seems like he's gotten off on the right foot so far playing center field in spring training. And I think if you can have Trey hitting first and you get Crawford probably 8th or 9th in the lineup, get some of that speed back to back, you've got a lot of opportunities to drive some runs in, get speed on the bases. And we've all seen with them with how they've done things with helping stolen bases and stuff like that, stolen base rates up. It's never going to be what it was when I was a kid with guys like Ricky Henderson, Vince Coleman, Willie McGee, and all those guys. But stolen base rates up by quite a bit from the last several years. If you get those guys
Bigger
on the base,
bases
they
have
can.
helped there. That's been great for the
Yeah,
game.
yeah, and you're gonna be threatening people with those guys on base. It's gonna be good.
Yeah, that's going to be cool. Like, can you imagine, there's going to be times in games you could have Crawford on base, you could have Trey Turner on base, and you just don't know which one of
Double
them are going to
steal.
try and steal, you know what I mean?
Double
That's going
steal.
to be
Hell,
really
Crawford
tricky.
on second.
Yeah,
Crawford on second,
it
and
could
Trey on
happen,
first. Put a double steal on, man.
Yeah. Yeah, that's what we need. We need that bit of, something. Obviously, we've got the big hitters with obviously the first three guys and what have you, but you need that, obviously, that on base. When guys are on base, you need that danger as well. Like, like teams thinking, what are they going to do? You know what I mean? So those small ball things that happen with stealing bases and stuff. So that's going to be really sort of exciting to see. Yeah.
Talking about Bryce again, real quick. Jack said this the other day when Spike was advocating that Bryce just needs to relent and hit second. Let Schwarbs hit behind him at third, because we heard Topper in the interview saying, we want those guys to get in that bat in the first inning. All three of those guys we want to come to the plate in the first inning. And Spike asked Jack what Schwarber's average and OPS was when he did hit third. I think Jack said Schwarber hit 38 times in the 3-hole, and his average was 280 something, and his OPS was great and all that. Bryce just needs to relent, man. I'm telling you, he needs to take walks more. We've heard this from the guys. LA said it, Jack, everybody said it. Be more patient at the plate. Take walks. Get on base, guys. If you're going to win games, get on base. Don't be swinging for the fences all the time. And I really think if Trey was lead off and you had Bryson Schwarber behind him, it would be flipping. I think it would be awesome. I really do. I don't think Bryce will relent. But in 39 games, that sample size, Schwarber's average, home runs, OPS, and everything was just as high, if not higher, than it was when he hit second.
Yeah, I wouldn't mind having a look at that. You know what I mean? Like, they got to try something different, and like they're known for, like, the last couple of years, they've been known for being this slugging team. You know what I mean? Because of the heavy hitters that we have. So it's just like, we can hit home runs, we can slug, and whatever. Yeah, that's great. But then where we struggle then is when those bats go cold in October and other times in the year, we struggle then to play small ball. We don't have that backup thing behind us to be able to play that type of baseball. So they could, like you said, he's going to have to try and think of, open up to a more modern way of playing baseball. You know what I mean? What do you think, Drew, about that with Bryce in the line, moving to second in the lineup possibly?
Yeah, so I don't know how to sell this to Bryce, but I think he should take the idea of hitting second as a compliment, like, especially if you talk to Aaron Judge at the World Series. Like, Aaron Judge has hit second for most of his Yankees career, and I feel like that has kind of become almost like the new, like, kind of like an analytics trend in the game, where you have your best hitter hit second because, as opposed to cleanup or whatnot, or even third, because it guarantees they are going to get in that bat in the first inning. And, they're probably going to get, as the season accumulates, just the way lineups go, like, probably like 20 to 40 more at bats during the season than they might have gotten, hitting a spot or two below the lineup. So again, I don't know how to, whether it's, Topper, Scott Boras, etc., sell that to Bryce, but I don't see a downside to that. I mean, go talk to Aaron Judge. I'm pretty sure there's probably a time where Shohei's batting second. I know he kind of, often, like,
Shohei leads off now
for the Dodgers, but like second, second is not a demotion, or it's not, it's not like, how it was perceived like 20 years ago, where it was, you're kind of like, speed, contact, like, slap hitter guy. Like, there's a lot of guys who are the best hitters on their team hitting second. So I would be absolutely in favor of him at least being open to doing that.
And if you're Bryce Harper, you should think about it in terms of, like, obviously what's happened with Dave Dombrowski. After the playoffs ended, and he made those comments. Is he elite anymore? We'll take it as a thing of right. Okay, I'm pissed off. You've pissed me off. I'm going to show you how elite I am. I'm going to move up to second, and I'm going to show you why I'm good enough to bat at the very top of the lineup.
Yes.
You know what I mean? Because I am that. Take that anger and frustration and you use it.
Take it as a
Be
challenge.
up as a challenge. Yeah, exactly. There's no reason why he can't do it. You know what I mean? Those three guys, you should always be. The first four batters or whatever, the first five batters, you should always look into moving things around, depending on the ERA and how they're looking like, because if you stick to this, like the Phillies have done the last few years, they keep repeating the same mistakes, you know what I mean? And they think they're going to have a different outcome, you know what I mean? The definition of insanity, and it hasn't worked. So this year now, if this is going to be a sort of, not like a rebuild year, but a year where maybe internally their expectations aren't too high, us as a fan base probably don't have high expectations. It's sort of like, see what happens if they get to the postseason, because obviously there's that thing of anything can happen. But so they should take this year as a to let's play around with some things, see what different things look like, because we've got young guys coming up, see what they look in the lineup. You're going to be rotating Brandon Marsh and Otto Kemp in left field. What does that look like? Is that going to be good enough by the trade deadline? Are we going to go after, going to try and trade for a big name left fielder? You know what I mean? What does Crawford look like? There's these bench spots, final bench spots. You know what I mean? It's you got De La Cruz now, and you got Johan Rojas competing for that final bench spot. I think De La Cruz will get it. I don't think
Please,
Rojas will
De
get
La
it.
Cruz get it.
Yeah, I don't think Rojas is going to get it. And you know what I mean? I think they like De La Cruz. They're going to see what he keeps looking like in spring training and go from there. But yeah, so we'll see. Obviously, a couple of nice games to watch over the weekend. Now you got Christopher Sanchez on the mountain tonight against the Blue Jays, and we got Andrew Painter against the Yankees tomorrow. So that's going to be exciting. So before we go, guys, do you wanna touch on any Eagles stuff quickly? Obviously, there's a lot of talk going around at the at the moment. The AJ Brown stuff is still swirling in the air. People are saying he wants to be traded, and obviously got Howie and Nick then going on the NFL Network this week saying we're not trading him. He doesn't want to be traded. He wants to be here. But then you've still got other shows saying that there is a strong possibility he's going to be traded. You've got this thing of Kobe Dean could be going to Dallas, and like I said the other week, I cannot live with that if Kobe Dean is in Dallas. You know what I mean? So. Obviously, free agency is coming up soon. We'll be doing a couple of draft pods, before opening day, before the draft and stuff. So, any Eagles thoughts? Are you guys any concerns still with AJ Brown and free agency coming up and stuff?
I think AJ's going to be gone. We heard this week, Dan Rossini reported that his agent's been going around to teams at the combine, wanting to know, gauge their interest in him. I think there's going to be a lot of interest in him. What I
Oh,
felt we
definitely.
needed to happen in the Super Bowl happened, I think. And also Drake May, I think there were some issues with his shoulder as well. But we all saw Mike Vrabel gushing about A.J. Brown. The Bills need a receiver. The Patriots need a receiver. There's been rumors about the Ravens. I even heard someone mention possibly the Broncos. There was another team that's escaping my mind right now that's kind of a contender that might be in play for him. I think AJ's as good as gone, and it's going to be tough though because he's probably going to want a new deal as well, and the agreement would be on the trade. If we trade for you, you're going to sign a new deal and everything like that. But to me, I think it'll all start and end with New England. And I said this the other day with everything that Vrabel said. I know they had Shil Kapadia on the morning show, and Joe asked him, "Is that a sign of tampering with everything he said?" And Shil was kind of, "Oh no, these
Yeah.
guys will text older coaches and stuff like that. They may text the coach they had in the past and things like that, and say, hey, I'm having trouble with this or that, but you don't hear them speak on it like Vrabel did." Vrabel was
Yeah.
just basically
That's
laying it out. Oh
different.
yeah,
Yeah.
we talked and all this. So if I'm the Eagles, I want 31. I think they have several fourths. I want a fourth and give me a third next year, or possibly do something, because I don't know that New England's going to be great next year. Go for their one next year. Ask for their first round pick next year. I don't think they're going to be that great next year, guys. I really
It's an
don't.
interesting
It
point.
was
Yeah.
it's kind of one of those things. Drake May's second year in the league and all that, and everything fell into place for them. They had a very easy schedule, kind of like we did with our first Super Bowl in Carson. You know what I'm saying? We didn't have a difficult schedule that year, even though, you know, we went to the Super Bowl. We finished the job. We won with a backup. But I would possibly ask for their first next year, because essentially 31, it's a high second round pick. But I mean, we all, you know, you can find a great player in the 30s. You can. You just have to dig in and do your homework and everything. But I think he'll be with the Patriots before it's all said and done. I really do.
From what I've seen, if they trade him before June, I think, is it Drew, that they'll take a really big like dead cap hit, and I think if they trade him after June, it's like they're still gonna take like a bit of a hit, but it's not as bad as it will be before June. So you know, I trust Howie to do the right thing. I really do. And if they got to trade him to the Browns to get, well, I don't care. Like you know what I mean. But obviously, it's interesting because there's talk that, well, he could stay because of Sean Mannion, because Saquon had an interview the day and he said, from what he've talked with Sean Mannion so far, his offense looks exciting and interesting and new. So, you know, there could be that thing of they try to keep AJ Brown for that purpose, to give this offense a chance with Sean Mannion. But I don't know. Time will tell. What do you think about it all, Drew?
Yeah, I think that's overall accurate, Adam, as it pertains to pre and post June 1st. I haven't gotten into the weeds there, but I don't think either world would preclude Howie, if he is from doing it, from taking the cap hit, if he's able to, you know, get good value in the form of compensation.
Yeah, he's got to get good value.
And to build on what Justin said, I do think the Eagles can and will get good value when you factor in all those AFC teams combined with that, you know, like the Chiefs right now with the Mahomes injury are, you know, kind of down, and not the Chiefs. Like if I'm someone in the Ravens front office, in the Bills front office, in the, you know, Broncos front office, I'm being like, guys, like the time is now. Like we want a ring, like we need to go. We need to attack this. And, you know, this guy could be a missing piece. And then I think that in turn can drive up some pressure on the Patriots too. So I do expect him to be traded. I think the Eagles overall, from a messaging standpoint, are kind of playing this pretty well. I have heard the Mannion stuff. I don't think he likes. I just, like, they can say they're okay. They can say they talked about some things. It seems to me like AJ just doesn't like the quarterback and will be happier somewhere else, where I do expect him to, you know, probably be traded in the next couple of weeks. It'll obviously be, you know, eyes on the start of that league year. As far as other stuff, I think I said this to you guys in the group chat at one point. This free agency reminds me a little bit of, like, you sit down at a menu, you look at like all the items, and it's like, well, nothing really is jumping out to me. Let me just order like chicken fingers and fries,
get a burger
kind of thing. Yeah. And I think, like, to me, I think like Jalen Phillips is the one guy where I think, you know, you could kind of equate him to like a, you know, steak or like a fancier meal, but obviously not a perfect meal. There's, you know, some issues there as it pertains to, you know, kind of injury track record and all. But yeah, I think that's, outside of the AJ stuff, I think that's a spot that the Eagles have to, you know, figure out to make, because I don't think you want to go into the draft with a pressing need at edge rusher. So are you bringing back Jalen Phillips? Are you, you know, tapping into like the Max Crosby trade market? If not, like if you told me that one of those two things was going to happen right now, I'd be like, okay, cool. I feel pretty good about that group. But if you don't have either, then I feel really not good about that group. So I think that's kind of the biggest thing that I'll be paying attention to as the league year gets going.
Yeah, definitely. They've got to go into this next spot now of the off season. You know, they've got to sort out that edge spot, because we saw last year that there wasn't much pressure from the edges. You know what I mean? Everyone seemed, I know Jalex Hunt had some interceptions and stuff, but he wasn't nothing like special. Nolan Smith took a step back. I've seen like tweets out there from different like pages and stuff that like Nolan Smith is going to get paid this off season. Like he's going to get a like a nice like 2-3 year extension or something. I'm like, well, I don't know. I'd hold off on that maybe. You know. So. Would you guys, before we finish, would you guys sort of, do you think the Eagles could do like a sort of straight swap where you swap, you go to the Raiders and you say, look, here's AJ Brown, we want Max Crosby. Do you think they would go for that, or do you think the Browns would go for AJ for Myles Garrett? You know, because they know that the Eagles tried to get Myles Garrett last year, we couldn't get him. So do you think any type of trade like that would work, or do you think that's just like not realistic?
The Myles Garrett thing interests me for this reason. We all saw Vic Fangio kind of walking the line with maybe retiring. And what we heard was he's going to come back for one more year. And then we saw that Jim Schwartz resigned from his defensive coordinator position. We heard that if Fangio retired, that they might bring back Jim Schwartz. Well, Myles Garrett just broke the single season sack record with Jim Schwartz as his defensive coordinator.
Yeah.
And we all know you need really good DBs to play, the style of defense that Schwartz likes to play. So that would be interesting. I think we would probably have to throw a little something extra in to get Myles Garrett.
Yeah.
Along with AJ Brown. And the Max Crosby thing, I don't know if AJ would agree to go. Like it would make it difficult because, like I said, he's going to want a new deal, and he might make it. Hell, I'd make it difficult to go to Cleveland. I mean, nobody wants to go there. But with the Raiders, it'd be funny because he'd have a rookie quarterback too. So with either of those teams, I think AJ would make it tough, in my opinion. But how bad does he want out? Could he pull a Randy Moss like when Moss left? I think when he left the Vikings, he went to the Raiders for a season. Then he went to the Patriots the next, something like that. Hell, I'd love to have Myles Garrett or Max Crosby, but with those teams being the shit teams that they are, I don't know that he would agree. I think he'd make it a difficult trade and like not want to sign a deal with either of those teams. That's my opinion.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'd love it from an Eagles perspective. I'd sign up for either right now.
Yeah.
I think, unfortunately, I just don't see either of those happening. I think if you're like a rebuilding organization like the Raiders or the Browns, now you could argue whether it's the right or the wrong approach, but I just think they tend to want, picks in that instance in order to be able to, get their own players. Like I think the Raiders, would go into like a Max Crosby trade being like, well, we'd rather, get a first round pick and a 2 firsts and a third or a first and 2 seconds from a team and just kind of be able to bring in our own guys as opposed to bringing in someone like AJ. So I love the idea of it, in like a perfect world for the Eagles, but I just don't see it happening.
And the thing about it is, if they got those picks, they're going to flush those picks down the toilet and pick somebody that ain't worth a broke dick anyway, because they can't draft worth a damn. You know what I'm saying? Neither one. I mean, they're saying that Fernando Mendoza is probably going to be the number 1 pick to the Raiders. Yeah, the kid won a national championship and all that with Indiana. Great story, but I've not seen anything from him that would make him the number 1 pick to me. I mean, it's just
that's what that's what my thoughts are. Like he's not like a big guy for quarterback. He looks a lot like Drake May, doesn't he? You know what I mean? He's quite skinny. Doesn't have you know what I mean? Obviously, he's got a good mind about him, and he can throw the ball well. But is that going to cross over to the NFL? And obviously, if you land with like the Raiders or the Browns or whatever, it's just not. Do you know what I mean? And does he have that? I don't know. We will see. But I'm with you with that. I don't see that type of special thing with him, you know what I mean? I think it's just because he won the national championship and that's that, but yeah, but
real
so
quick,
guys, go on, just before we wrap.
You were talking about maybe, unfortunately, probably losing to Kobe Dean. That looks more than likely that it's going to happen, especially, we drafted Jihad in the first round last year and everything. Another one that
not Dallas.
Yeah, another one I think we're probably going to lose is maybe Reed Blankenship, but I I have been doing some draft, and we all know we need offensive linemen. We don't know what the future holds with Lane Johnson or Landon Dickerson, and everybody's going into the offseason thinking we're going to draft offensive line to start with. But look out for this safety from Oregon, Dylan Thielen. While we've been on here, I turned my TV on. Y'all can't see it because it's in front of me, but I've got yesterday's combine on, and this kid's a safety out of Oregon, and we could possibly have a new version of the exciting lights. This kid is very athletic. He's like 5'11" something, 200 something pounds. He's a really good safety, guys, out of Oregon. He's had a good workout. All his numbers, what I've seen thus far, I've not really watched any highlights or film of him by any means. I've just watched him play here and there. But if we lose Reed Blankenship, we all know how Vic likes his secondary to be, locked in, and we've proven we can do it with young safety or young secondary players, I should say. We won a Super Bowl with a rookie number 2 corner and a rookie slot corner in Cooper DeJean and Quinyon Mitchell. So in the upcoming shows, we're going to dig in more to the draft because everybody knows, man. I mean, somebody asked me the other day if I was looking forward to the draft and the combine. I said, is a rocking horse got a wooden pecker? So I mean, yes, I'm looking forward. I'm looking forward to the draft, free agency. I love it every year. It's like Christmas all over for me because y'all know I'm like Corey. We love college football. So keep an eye out on Dylan Thielen. This kid, he's very athletic. Ran a good 40. I think his 40 was 4.37, something like that. Keep an eye on that kid.
My first thought was, is he related to Adam, the Vikings receiver? Just because of the
I'm sorry, I was saying Thielen.
I
was saying Thielen. I'm sorry, that's what I had in my head. In my head the whole time, I'm like, don't say Thielen, and that's what I said. It's Thielman or something like that. I apologize, guys.
Okay,
I'm sorry.
I'll write down
I butchered it. It's Dylan Thieneman or something like that. I had Adam Thielen in my head the whole damn time, not wanting to say it.
These guys,
he's on the screen now. It's Dylan Thieneman. My bad.
These guys have some like crazy surnames, like these college kids that keep coming out of the draft stuff. Their names are just crazy. But that'll be like I said to you guys, like I can take Nakobe Dean leaving because we've got Jihad Campbell, we're still developing Trot Jr. and stuff, but like I just can't see him. I don't want him or Blankenship with the Cowboys. The danger is because obviously Christian Parker now is obviously the defensive coordinator for the Cowboys, and he's got good relationships with those guys, obviously. So that's the danger there. So quick thoughts from you, Drew, on that situation with Nakobe and Reed. Because I've said before, surely they can get Reed and Nakobe back on cheap deals. I can't see there being a big market out there for them, apart from obviously if Christian Parker tries to recruit them. So do you think, obviously Dean is probably lost, but Reed Blankenship, I would like to try and get him back if you can. I know you're up on Marcus Epps, and obviously I'd be up for Marcus Epps coming back as well. But what's your quick thoughts on that before we wrap up?
Yeah, I think Nakobe's as good as gone, and I think it's, obviously sad from a sentiment standpoint, but I think that decision was kind of made, unfortunately, when he got hurt against the, Packers in the playoff game during the Super Bowl run, and they decided to take Campbell. Reed, to me, I think has a bit more of a chance of being back. If I were to guess, he's probably not back, but I think that's kind of a case where the Eagles maybe tell his agent, like, go out and, for the first couple of days, tell us what your best deal is, and we'll, decide if we can, match it or not pretty quickly. I know people keep talking about it. I don't know how much the Christian Parker relationships matter, and maybe this we'll see what happens. Maybe this can reassure people a little bit. I just don't know how much like Jerry Jones is going to listen to like an assistant coach, like a first year defensive coordinator. So like Christian Parker can say like, I want these guys. I kind of feel like Jerry's going to do, whatever it is that he wants to do.
Let's hope Jerry does what Jerry does and mess things up completely. Just hope.
So I think people can hopefully latch on to that of like, I don't know that there's really a better chance that they're, Cowboys versus just being, going to any other team in the league that has a need at those positions.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. I completely forgot about the Jerry Jones thing. Just hope Jerry does what Jerry does, and yeah. So and obviously
So Dylan
there's
Thieneman ran a 4.3540
yeah.
faster than Justin Jefferson, AJ Brown, and I
Ooh,
forgot the other receiver. So like I said,
That's
safety out of
insane.
Oregon, early guy I'm kind of on. I was kind of seeing him to some mock drafts and everything. I've watched him play for Oregon, great safety, but yeah, 4.3540, great vert. He's done well for himself at the combine, guys. So I'm sorry. Go ahead.
All right, that's a name we can keep an eye on, yeah, because we'll obviously next few weeks now we'll get a couple of draft pods. We'll probably have to do an early draft show this year because obviously I know you guys are going to be away and stuff, and obviously I want to get Corey on with us as well because, like you said, just Corey's a massive draft guy as well. So we'll get us. I'll try and get us all together earlier this year for the draft before the draft. Yeah, and obviously you've seen that there's going to be obviously some international games again this year, and the Eagles away to the Jags. And I'm crossing my fingers that the Eagles come to London to play the Jags in one of those games because I'm desperate to see this team, this core group of players play. You know what I mean? I want to see Jalen Hurts and Devontae and, you know what I mean, Landon Dickerson. I want to see this group play. I can't get out to Philly yet, you know what I mean, for another few years probably. So I'm crossing all my fingers and toes that the NFL does the right thing and send the Eagles to play the Jaguars because it's a good game for ratings. You know what I mean? Like the international games are never that good. You know what I mean? And so I'm hoping they do the right thing. Eagles and the Jags. The Jags were good last year. The Eagles are not long coming off another Super Bowl. So to me, that's a good matchup. If you're going to do an international game, at least make it a good one. You know what I mean? Because they're never really that good. It's always like the Jags versus the Browns or the Jags versus the Jets versus the Raiders. You know what I mean? It's not like marquee matchups. So I'm crossing my fingers for that, so I'll be definitely keeping an eye out for that. Or Washington, because Washington are coming over here as well to play games, so they might do like an NFC East matchup for the first time. They haven't done that before over here. I don't think like an actual division game, so we'll see what happens. But yeah, guys, thanks again. Great show. Really good, and obviously a couple of Philly spring training games to watch tonight. Christopher Sanchez, Andrew Painter tomorrow. So we'll be back soon with some more pods. Yeah, we'll see you guys soon. Like, follow, subscribe to us on YouTube and Twitter and everything. And we'll be back soon. And go Phils, go Birds.
Love y'all, man.